the main attraction to becoming an entrepreneur was always to make a lot of money so that you can do good work. That was not necessarily the best motive to become an entrepreneur.
Today we're talking all about entrepreneurship versus intrapreneurship, what the difference is, what traits make you good at each one, how the skills actually combine. So being a good entrepreneur can make you a great intrapreneur, and the skills you learn as being an intrapreneur can help you as an entrepreneur. And also the harsh realities of when it is the right phase of life to be in each part of the journey, and where sometimes you do fail, but failing doesn't mean that you close off other doors. And today with us, we have Param Singh MBE, who's had a really vast experience in his career, where he's been both an entrepreneur and an intrapreneur of both not-for-profits, for businesses, for real estate, and he's worked in 11 different industries. So he's got that true breadth to really be able to give valuable advice for you in your part of your journey today. Let's get into the show. So, Param, it's so great to have you here today. And it's a really interesting topic. And I know that you've had such a varied experience in both entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship. Can you give us a quick overview of some of the different roles you've had in those different spheres?
So from an entrepreneurship perspective, I have been involved with 3 different startups. I have founded multiple different charities. So that's the social entrepreneur perspective. I founded a property investment company. And from an entrepreneurship perspective, I've worked in 11 different careers across 12 different industries.
Wow. So that gives you such a breadth, because I think a lot of people have this fixed mindset of they're in a certain career and they find it hard to move around, whereas you've been able to have that variety, right? And you mentioned there about the different companies you started. What drove you to become an entrepreneur? What drove you to try and build your own thing, whether it's through the charities or through the business side?
Yeah, absolutely. So being a social entrepreneur has been something that I've been passionate about from a very young age, even after graduating. And I wanted to learn about the charity sector and about non-profit so that when we eventually make enough money, we can do good with that money and have vehicles to do that good work. The main attraction to becoming an entrepreneur was always to make a lot of money so that you can do good work. That was not necessarily the best motive to become an entrepreneur, but that was my motivation. And unfortunately, it didn't necessarily result in the best results from from a successful company's perspective.
And like when you look back on that, like tell us a bit more about your mindset at that time. Was it like a real drive? You're like, I'm going to make loads of money, and then how did you think about that? Like put us into the mind of Param when you were starting these companies.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we look in the news, and we look in the media, and we see, Mark Zuckerberg, and we see, the big tech titans, and we think, well, if they can do it, then why couldn't I do it? And that is a valid mode of thinking. But the reality is that those big businesses, those really big, very successful stories are few and far between. And most people are not going to have that level of success. You're not very unlikely to become a billionaire. It's just the statistics are just, we've got to look at the data when we when we have a perspective on things. And I didn't necessarily have that data perspective. I just had positive mindset. Unfortunately, positive mindset doesn't always get you the results you need. It's good to have, but it doesn't necessarily provide results.
I always say it's like you've got to dream big, but then be able to roll with the punches. So if you just keep pivoting, and you've got to be happy with your progress at the same time as thinking like, oh, like I could do more, maybe I could do more. And it's a really hard balance, I think, to find that of dreaming big without being crushing on yourself in terms of the amount of pressure you put on yourself. And I'm trying to get there, but I think it's something which a lot of people are working on of how do you make a huge impact without just beating yourself up all the time about what you haven't achieved and what you have achieved. And
absolutely,
I imagine in the past there's some moments where you have beaten yourself up, where there's been really hard moments where like, am I doing the right thing? Like, what have I got myself into here? Can you talk about some of that reality of like being those hard moments as an entrepreneur?
So, there's so many people that work a 9 to 5 or 5 days a week, and they think that is hard work. Well, when you become an entrepreneur, there is no day you don't work, and there's no 9 to 5. There's no such thing as a 9 to 5. You have to do the work that needs to be done to achieve the goals that you have set out to achieve. And so from people say, oh, I want to be my own boss and I want to be able to do things on my terms. Well, it's not, you won't, yes, you will be your own boss, but you're not necessarily doing things on your own terms. Most people probably don't want to do 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. But I know a lot of entrepreneurs that work these sorts of times. The first thing you have to keep in mind with entrepreneurship is it can be a lot of hours. Because you're creating something from scratch. Nothing exists. There's no systems. There's no processes. You may not have any customers. And so building all that from scratch, compared to working in a company that's been around 100 years with 1 million customers, like such as an S&P 500 or FTSE 100 business, it's a totally different thing. The other thing is that you can no longer be just a professional. If you're a very good accountant, just being a good accountant is not going to help you in being a good entrepreneur. You're going to have to become a polymath, which is a skilled person in multiple different areas. You're going to have at least some bit of knowledge in accounting and legal and data and lots of different areas, marketing, to have any chance of being successful in to have any chance of success as an entrepreneur.
And I think that's one interesting thing that you said, because obviously I was in the creative space. So there's so many people who talk about being your own boss and making your own decisions. And the being your own boss, I use it myself as like a term because it's just the easiest way to say it. But in reality, you're never your own boss. If you've got customers, you've got investors, you've got stakeholders, if you've got a business where maybe it's like an e-commerce store, all of your bosses are everybody who buys your product. You can't just do what you want because otherwise nobody will buy it. Well, you can do what you want, but you're not going to make any money, right? You've got something that you've got to serve. And it's making sure you've got to get that in your head, and getting into it in the way that you know what you're getting into. And it's really difficult sometimes to both encourage people, but also show people that reality of what's going on there. And obviously you had to fold some of your businesses, right? What was that experience like? A lot of people won't talk about what's happened there.
Yeah, it's sad because what happens is, let's say you work on something for 1 or 2 years, and then you have to know when to pull the trigger. Because when you pull the trigger to say, you know what, this is not going to work, you have to come to terms with, okay, well, I've made this many losses. Let's say if I was working for a company, I would have made this much money. So that's the lost opportunity that you have to account for. The money that you could have earned in a normal job that you didn't earn because you were trying to, make your millions in your startup business. And then you have to then bring in the account for all of the costs that you've had to incur in your startup business itself. And so that can typically become, if it's over 1 or 2 years, you're easily looking at a 6-figure business. So the first, it's hard emotionally because you have to come to terms with, well, this is the end of this journey. And the quicker you can close that journey, the better. So they say, if you're in business, if you're going to fail fast. And the reason why you want to fail fast is it reduces your cost of opportunity, because you can be doing something else that could make you money. And also it reduces the costs that you incur in, ad spend and or whatever other sort of items that you have to spend money on to generate revenue. And so that's been a pain. So that's been a good learning experience, and where you have to come to terms with the fact that something hasn't worked and it's time to close. And if you've got other business partners, you have to have those discussions, and those discussions can be difficult sometimes as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you just mentioned there, I think, is really important for people to know. So obviously the last year I focused on the not-for-profit for the HQ. That means that if I didn't do the stuff I do for fun, essentially, so the podcast, those kind of stuff, if I just focused on how I could make as much money as possible, I'm down a couple $100K probably from this year because of what I could be earning just by becoming very focused on money. And I'm in a very privileged position where I can choose to spend that time and put money into a new business and grow it. And now it's hopefully paying off. But in the short term, if you just want to make money, often it can be better to just have a job and get the salary in. Being an entrepreneur is a very long-term view all the time.
That is absolutely 100% the case. And the number of people that I've spoken to who are, making, so there's 5.5 million SMEs in the UK. An SME in the UK can be businesses up to 250 people. But the average profit that an SME makes in the UK is £12,000, and 90% of startups fail. So you're looking at so even if your business doesn't fail, it's probably going to be making on average £12,000 profit a year. And you would be better off getting a salary. Almost any job would pay you like double that at least. Like most graduate salaries would pay you double that. And so you could do something as a side hustle, but then you need to appreciate that it's a side hustle and it's not something that's going to pay your mortgage and your bills.
Yeah. And like I can even openly, so you can go to company's house and you can see, so my business last year made a loss because I stopped making money because after my dad passed, then a lot of the revenue generating work I stopped by saving my costs. And it's something which, like, I don't think I've admitted that before, but I think I have, but it's just something to be very watchful of because I was able to make money while working a day job and make savings. So it's always thinking about like what's your unique circumstances, which we'll get on to later, about whether or not it's the right moment for you. But let's talk about entrepreneurship now, right? So we talk about entrepreneurship and the struggles there. What does being an entrepreneur mean to you?
Being an entrepreneur is a fantastic opportunity to really like multi-skill yourself. And if you were an entrepreneur and you failed, such as myself, in many different digital with the various different startup companies I've set up, you can go back. There's always an option to go back into the corporate world and be an entrepreneur, and use those multiple skills that you've gained now to look at a job that you're working in and see, well, I could do in this new job, if I did my work this way, I could save time, or I could totally remove a process. So you're always looking for improvement. How can you improve something? How can you make something better? How can you make it more efficient? And now with AI, the game is now, well, those people that can use AI to rapidly increase their productivity versus those humans that are just haven't gained that ability to that knowledge or those skill sets to use AI to augment their own skills and increase their productivity.
And like, how does it being an entrepreneur work in practice for you? Like, what have you done using that entrepreneurial mindset? So you've learned all these skills from being an entrepreneur. Like, what's some of the ones where you've then gone into a company and been able to make a real massive difference to them? Because that's a huge value you can pay them, right?
Absolutely. So I remember working in a rail business, and within the first few weeks, I had done my first trip to Poland, and I had used Uber for the first time. And I was like, this is amazing. Now it solved the problem of going to a place where you can't necessarily speak the language and you can't get ripped off anymore on cab fares because everything is listed out in the app, like, the journey and the cost you're going to pay. And this was brilliant. So I saw that. I thought, what a wonderful idea. I went back to the rail business, and the rail business they had a fatality. So someone on the rail network was on the tracks, and they had a fatality. And I was like, how is it possible that in the modern world, in the time that we're living in, that someone can be on a track and not know that the train is coming, and then basically lose their life? And yet I can go to a foreign country where I can't speak the language, and I can see and know exactly how long where the car is, and when I'm in the car, like where it's traveling to and where it gets to. And so I propose, well, if an Uber app can do this, I'm sure we can give all engineers that are working on on rail, an app that they can use so they can see trains that are coming. And within 10 minutes, the app is notifying those individuals to get away from the rail tracks entirely until the train has gone past. And people love the idea. Now, I didn't stay around to develop the app and develop the idea, but you can see how ideas from the business world, or things that you can see in your everyday life, you can then look at your business or look at the company that you're working in and say, well, how can I make the company better, or how can I improve things either in your job or in the wider business by I call them transplant, like a surgeon. You're transplanting ideas from different industries or different parts of parts of the world and bringing them into your company where they may not currently exist.
Awesome. Yeah. I love that example as well, because as you said, I think that's where the real difference is made. If somebody's only got one experience, then it's very hard to be creative. Right? The creativity comes from having different experiences where you can apply a different lens to a problem that maybe other people in the industry haven't seen before yet.
Exactly. And that's why it can be beneficial if you're a professional to work across different industries. Like I've worked across 12 different industries and in lots of different types of jobs. And that provides you an opportunity to see lots of different roles, to see different perspectives. Being an entrepreneur, it's the same thing. You will see lots of different perspectives. You learn lots of different things you just wouldn't learn. If you're an accountant, you may be a good financial modeler, but you wouldn't know where to start on running a Facebook paid ad, for example. And so the more you can learn, being an entrepreneur is a fabulous opportunity because you have to do everything yourself. And so you have to learn everything to some level. And that makes for a very good professional. You can go back and, definitely increase your salary, and people will respect you for the ideas that you can bring as an entrepreneur in the different businesses that you work in.
Hey everyone, we hope you're enjoying this episode so far. A quick note from our sponsors who make this all possible. From first-time founders to the funds that back them, innovation needs different. HSBC Innovation Banking is proud to accelerate growth for tech and life science businesses, creating meaningful connections and opening up a world of opportunity for entrepreneurs and investors alike. Discover more at hsbcinnovationbanking.com. Back to the show. And looking at that as well, so you've had made different transitions throughout your career. How does somebody listening right now know whether it's the right time for them to become an entrepreneur and an intrapreneur?
So, no, that's a very good question. So one of the things that I started from after graduating was property investment. And that's been one of the few things that has actually made me money, because it's an asset-based business. So the asset itself can't devalue, hopefully. And normally, even if you do things wrong in property, the property value will increase. And so it's like a bad haircut. Bad haircut may be here today, but your hair will eventually grow, and so the bad haircut will also grow out, and so eventually you make money. Now, in my case, my property portfolio had come to a point where my expenses were equaling my income, so I could leave my job, and although my income would go down, I would still have a base amount of income that I have from my property portfolio that could then, pay for my essential things and give me the time to, that I need to invest in myself to learn the skills and in the business to build a business. So everyone has a different risk profile. If you are married and you've got children and you've got a mortgage, you need to be on the lower end of risk. You need to make sure that you have enough money and probably enough savings to be able to take you through the business journey that you're looking to go through. If you're a graduate, you can have a much higher risk profile. You haven't got expenses, you haven't got people to look after, you haven't got dependents, and so you can be more aggressive either in your investing career or in the risks you take in terms of starting up businesses. So you have to keep that in mind when you are building a business or becoming an investor.
Absolutely, yeah. So as we've said, you've worked in 11 different roles at 12 different industries and you've had multiple different startups. What are you working on now? What are your current projects?
So as a social entrepreneur, something that we did this year was we set up the Women in Technology and Business Parliamentary Series. That was done as an experiment because you never know what interest you'll have, whether it's a business or whether it's a social project. You don't know how something is going to be until you put something out there and you see the traction. And we were overwhelmed with the amount of response we had. We were filling up the seats like twice as many RSVPs as we could accommodate, 3 times as many RSVPs as we could accommodate. And we thought, okay, this is fantastic. We did our first event. We thought, this is fantastic. Let's create this as a series. And so next year we are looking to continue that series where we're giving a platform to women. Women have done remarkable work in business and technology, either in the startup space or in big businesses. So either of those are valid, valid routes to showcase and gain experience and skills. And so we're looking to continue that next year after the success we've had.
Awesome. And do you think your own experience with entrepreneurship, for example, has made you more effective even in that aspect as well, right? Organising this event, because you've done what you've done. How has that helped you? Because I think people often forget how everything links together, right?
Yeah, absolutely. When you are doing lots of different types of work, you can pretty much do anything you want to put your hand to. You can do it. And this parliamentary series, because I've worked in Parliament before, the political contacts are there. Because of, as an entrepreneur, you will have, and I will have done lots of event organizing. We've got those skill sets, and of course, as you develop and grow your sort of community of people, you have the contacts there as well. And I know you've been very helpful with recommending us speakers as well, and we absolutely really appreciate that.
Yeah, and I've been to a few of the events myself, and I think I missed the last one while I was away. But every time it's a great event, great speakers. You obviously do an incredible job there. And I think that's probably where I first met you guys. And it's also an incredible collaboration, right, with City Sikhs and City Hindus. And
absolutely, yeah, it's a good opportunity for us to work together as communities to show not just the platform for women in technology, but also the more subtle things like communities working together and for the betterment of society.
One of the other things that I've worked where I go myself, right, is that it's really important having this idea that everybody can learn from women. It's not about only women can learn from women. Women are great models for us all. And it's one of the things we do on the podcast too, because I really believe that very strongly, is that sometimes women aren't put into that situation where they're shown as leaders, and you're doing an incredible job of that. And the people you get on and the panelists you have, amazing stories. We're going to need to move on to the quick fire questions now, though. So the first one is, who are 3 British Asians you'd love to spotlight, who you think are doing incredible work and people should be paying attention to?
Yeah, no, so that is a really good question. So look, first and foremost, the number one Asian that comes to mind is you. You have done great work bringing so many different people, creating this wonderful platform of sharing knowledge and wisdom and shining a light on people that probably otherwise would not have a light shone on them. So massive thanks to you. Another couple of people that come to mind who I only met through the parliamentary event series, and one of them was introduced by yourself, was Ash Arora, who is one of the youngest partners in a VC firm. And she when you hear her talk about her work, it's fantastic. And I remember her mentioning that she specifically looks for passion in entrepreneurs. And I realized that's where I was going wrong, because I was focusing on money. And when their firm invests in founders, they look for passion. And I realized I didn't have the passion. I was just trying to do another job that I'd created myself, trying to make money. And so that's the second founder, Ash Arora, amazing person. Third person was a young graduate from Imperial College, who was a science major, and she set up a company called Clear. Her name is Ahana Banerjee, and she has a business in her early 20s that's already worth $15 million. And I think, it's fantastic to see so many people coming through the ranks who are getting the right advice. They have good role models through platforms like yourself, and who are doing really successful business and creating a legacy for our future generations.
So thanks so much for the shout out for me there. So I really appreciate it. I think we've got a long way to go before. I think there's a lot more work to be done. But Ahana and Ash are amazing. So Ahana's been on the podcast before. Like you said, incredible what she's been able to achieve at such a young age. And I think I'm interviewing Ash next week, actually. So Ash again.
Really amazing.
Yeah. She's a lovely person as well. So I've been to dinner with her, group dinners with her a few times. And as I said, she's got such infectious energy as well, and really knows her stuff. So really big fan of her as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And one other thing about Ash, though, I should mention, is that she is so humble. She is such a humble person. And you just think, wow, all these entrepreneurs that say, I can't work for someone because, because my ego is effective, because my ego is too big. Well, well, unfortunate news for you is that even when you are an owner, business owner, you're going to have to get over your ego. You need to become a better person if you want to be a successful entrepreneur. And you need to be humble, because you're going to have to learn a lot of things. You'd really, we only know like a tiny, tiny fraction of what we need to know to be successful. We're going to have to do a lot of learning, and that requires a lot of humility.
Absolutely. So if people want to learn more from you and connect with you, see what you're up to, learn maybe about the Women in Tech events as well, where should they go to?
Absolutely. Look, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. That's the best channel. And we are going to rerun our next sort of round 2 of the Parliamentary Women in Business and Technology, which of course is open to both men and women. Next year for International Women's Day will be our first event.
Awesome. So is there anything now that the audience listening today could be able to help you with?
Yes, absolutely. So we are always looking for speakers for either our Parliamentary Women in Tech and Business series or other events that we may have in the future in Parliament. So if you feel like you have a story that is worth sharing, please reach out to us, and we'll try and do our best to include you in some events in future.
Perfect. So thank you so much for coming on today. Really enjoyed this. Have you got any final words to the audience?
So absolutely, life is short. Follow your passion, follow your dreams, and put a plan together, ground it in reality, and make it happen.
Hello everyone. Thank you so much for listening. It means a huge amount to us, and we don't think you realize how important you are, because if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, if you leave us a 5-star review, it makes a world of difference. And if you believe in what we're trying to do here, to inspire, connect and guide the next generation of British Asians, if you do those things, you can help us achieve that mission, and you can help us make a bigger impact. And by doing that, it means we can get bigger guests, we can host more events, we can do more for the community. So you can play a huge part. So thank you so much for supporting us.